Nostradamus warned, strangers will come before 2025 ends. Daily prayer for protection. What if a warning, written nearly 500 years ago, wasn't just an old story from a history book, but a roadmap for our own time? Imagine a message in a bottle, floating across the vast ocean of centuries, meant to be opened right now. It's a profound thought, and one that invites us to look a little closer at the words of a man whose name has echoed through the ages. Let's talk about a name many of us have heard, Nostradamus. He was not a king nor a conqueror, but a 16th century French physician and seer, a mysterious sage really, who left behind a collection of cryptic verses that have puzzled and intrigued generations. For centuries, scholars, historians, and seekers of truth have debated his words, trying to decipher the riddles he wrapped in a mixture of French, Latin, and Greek. His prophecies have endured, surviving wars, revolutions, and the relentless march of time itself. But among all those enigmatic verses, one particular warning seems to rise above the others, speaking with a strange and unsettling clarity to the world of today. He wrote of strangers who would come. Not just any visitors, but figures of immense significance, whose arrival would mark a turning point for all of humanity. And according to many who have studied his work, he tied this arrival to a specific period. They believe that time is drawing near, just before the year 2025 comes to a close. It's a chilling thought, the kind of thing that's easy to dismiss as folklore from a distant, more superstitious age. It's easy to push aside until you take a moment to look around at the world we're living in. So, who are these strangers? Are they beings from another world, as some have claimed? Or could they be something else entirely, something born from our own time, our own creations, our own crises? And perhaps the most pressing question of all, why does this ancient warning feel so chillingly, so precisely relevant to the world we are living in today? Let's explore that together. The world in 2025 and the uninvited guests. Nostradamus warned of a time of chaos before the strangers appeared, a time when kingdoms are weakened and the earth itself groans under the weight of human division. As we stand here, in the year 2025, looking at the world around us, we cannot help but wonder, are we living in the very prelude to that prophecy? Perhaps the strangers Nostradamus foresaw are not visitors from the stars, but forces far more familiar, yet equally alien to the world we once knew. These are the uninvited guests of our modern age, the great and unsettling changes that have arrived at our doorstep, demanding our attention. The first of these strangers is a profound and growing global instability. For decades, there was a sense of a certain world order, a set of rules, however fragile. But now, that old stability feels like a distant memory. We see simmering conflicts in key regions of the world, tensions rising between great powers in ways that echo the most dangerous chapters of the last century. But this instability is not just something we watch on the evening news from far-off lands. It has come home. The very fabric of our own nation feels strained, stretched by a political and social polarization that is deeper and more bitter than many of us have ever experienced. Conversations with old friends and family can feel like navigating a minefield. The sense of a shared American identity, of being in this together, has been fractured. This deep division, this inability to find common ground, is a stranger to the spirit of unity we were taught to cherish. It walks among us, turning neighbor against neighbor, and it leaves us weakened, just as the prophecies warned. The second stranger is one that touches every household, every budget, every plan for the future, a dual crisis of environment and economy. The earth itself seems to be in a state of fever. The patterns of weather our parents and grandparents knew are no longer reliable. We witness wildfires of unprecedented scale, droughts that parch the heartland, and storms of a fury that seems almost personal. It's a physical manifestation of instability, a reminder that the natural world we depend on is under immense stress. And as the earth trembles, so do our economies. Many of us feel a quiet anxiety at the grocery store, watching prices climb for basic necessities. The dream of a secure retirement feels more distant for so many. There's a persistent feeling that the ground beneath our feet, both literally and financially, is less stable than it once was. This constant pressure, this uncertainty about the future of our planet and the security of our families, is a heavy burden. It is a stranger that sits at our kitchen table, a constant, unspoken presence that colors our hopes and our fears. Then there is the third, and perhaps the most truly alien of these strangers, the silent, explosive arrival of artificial intelligence. For our entire lives, humanity has been the sole author of its own story, the only truly intelligent consciousness on this planet. That is no longer the case. We are now sharing our world with a new form of intelligence, a new creature born not of flesh and blood, but of silicon and code. This is not science fiction, it is the reality of 2025. AI is already writing our emails, creating our art, and making decisions in medicine and finance. It holds the promise of solving some of our greatest challenges, curing diseases, solving the energy crisis, unlocking the secrets of the universe. But it also brings with it a profound sense of the unknown. We are creating something we do not fully understand, a mind that learns and evolves at a speed we cannot possibly match. What does it mean for our jobs, for our creativity, for what it means to be human? This powerful non-human intelligence is the ultimate stranger, and its arrival is forcing us to confront the deepest questions about our own purpose and destiny. It is a presence that is both a potential savior and a potential conqueror, and we are only just beginning to understand the terms of its arrival. And finally, there is the fourth stranger, perhaps the most insidious of all, because it feeds the others, the erosion of trust. The foundations we once took for granted feel as though they are turning to sand. Trust in our institutions, in our leaders, in our media, has fallen to historic lows. We live in an age of rampant misinformation, where it has become difficult to know who or what to believe anymore. This lack of a shared reality, of a common set of facts, is what allows division to fester. It paralyzes our ability to solve our problems, whether they be environmental, economic, or social. When we cannot trust the information we receive, and when we cannot trust each other, we become isolated. We retreat into our own tribes, and the other, whether they live across the street or across the world, becomes a source of suspicion and fear. This breakdown of trust is a corrosive stranger that eats away at the very heart of a functioning society. It creates a world ripe for chaos, a world where a population, confused and afraid, might be willing to accept any answer from any source that promises a way out. Nostradamus warned of a time of chaos before the strangers appeared. When you look at these four forces, global instability, environmental and economic crisis, the rise of a new intelligence, and the collapse of trust, it is hard not to feel that we are living through that exact time. Perhaps the strangers aren't coming from the stars. Perhaps they are already here, hidden in our news headlines, woven into our daily anxieties, and embedded in the lines of code that are rewriting our future. They are the great, unfamiliar challenges of our age, and they have arrived just as he predicted, in a time of deep and profound human weakness. Decoding Nostradamus, more than just riddles. So, with our world in such a state of flux, why should we give any weight to the cryptic verses of a man who lived half a millennium ago? It's a fair question. In an age of science and data, turning to a 16th century seer can feel like a step backward. But to understand why his words continue to resonate, we must first understand the man himself and the unique way he saw the world. His name was Michel de Nostradamus, born in France in 1503. He was not a wandering mystic shouting prophecies from a mountaintop. He was a man of his time, a learned physician and astrologer who lived through one of Europe's most turbulent periods, including the horrors of the plague. He was a man deeply familiar with human suffering, societal collapse, and the fragility of the world order. It was from this vantage point that he penned his life's work, a collection of nearly 1,000 four-line poems, or quatrains, which we know today as les prophéties, the prophecies. Now, anyone who has ever tried to read Nostradamus knows it is not a straightforward book of predictions. It is not a calendar of future events, and that is by design. To simply dismiss his work as vague is to miss the genius of his method, a method born out of necessity. Imagine living in the 1550 seconds. The Catholic Church and the Inquisition held immense power. To openly predict the fall of kings, the rise of new empires, or shifts in religious power was not just controversial, it was potentially a death sentence. Accusations of heresy and witchcraft were common, and the punishment was severe. So Nostradamus did what any intelligent person in his position would do. He veiled his visions. He wrote in a complex tapestry of languages, a mix of the Old French of his day, alongside Latin, Greek, and even bits of Provençal. He wove his predictions into a dense web of symbols, anagrams, and mythological allusions. This was not done to be deliberately confusing for its own sake. It was an act of preservation. He was creating a text that could survive the scrutiny of his own dangerous times, a text whose true meaning might only become clear to future generations who had the benefit of hindsight. He was writing not for the kings and bishops of the 16th century, but for us. He trusted that when the time was right, those who needed to understand would find the keys to unlock his riddles. So let's take that key and turn it, looking again at two of the most critical phrases in the context of 2025. First, consider the line, "The great star will blaze for 7 days." The most literal interpretation, of course, points to an astronomical event. It could be a brilliant comet, far brighter than any we've seen in recent memory, visible in our skies for a full week. It could be a supernova, the explosive death of a distant star, so luminous it would be visible even in daylight. These are real, plausible cosmic events, and many have believed this is what Nostradamus saw. But with Nostradamus, there is always a deeper symbolic layer. What if blazing isn't just about physical light? What if it refers to the intense, focused attention of the entire world? In our hyper-connected age, a single event can dominate the global consciousness for days on end. Think of a major economic crisis, a sudden global health scare, or a shocking geopolitical event. For a week, it's all anyone can talk about, all that appears on our screens. The event blazes in the collective mind of humanity. The 7 days might not be a literal count, but a symbolic representation of a complete cycle, a period of intense focus and trial that changes everything. So, is the great star a physical object in the sky, or is it a metaphor for a world-changing event that holds our planet captive in its glare? The genius of the verse is that it could very well be both at the same time. This brings us to the second, more profound verse. The new people will come from the heavens. The most sensational interpretation, the one that has fueled countless books and documentaries, is literal. Beings from the sky, visitors from another world. And in a universe we now know to contain billions of galaxies, that possibility can no longer be dismissed as mere fantasy. However, to limit the interpretation to only, that is to ignore the rich, symbolic meaning of the word heavens. For centuries, in sacred texts and philosophical writings, the heavens have represented more than just the physical sky. They can signify a higher plane of existence, a source of divine knowledge or revelation, or a revolutionary new paradigm that descends upon the world. So what if the new people are not creatures in ships, but the carriers of a new way of being? What if they are a metaphor for the very forces we see emerging today? Could the new people be the disembodied, globally connected consciousness of artificial intelligence, a non-human intelligence literally descending from the heavens of our digital clouds and satellite networks? Or could the new people refer to a generation that rises up with a completely new understanding of the world, a new way of thinking that shatters the old systems of power and control? A truth that comes from the heavens, in the sense that it is a higher understanding, a revelation that forces us to change. This is the depth of Nostradamus. His prophecies are not flat, one-dimensional predictions. They are multi-layered, speaking to both the physical and the metaphysical. He seems to have understood a fundamental truth about history, that great external events are often mirrors for profound internal shifts within humanity. His verses, then, are not a sentence, but a question. And today, as we look to our skies and to the state of our world, we are beginning to see the physical and societal signs that may just be the answer to that 500-year-old question. Signs in the sky, from Oumuamua to Atlas. The idea of a great star or a visitor from the heavens might have seemed like pure metaphor for centuries. But in our lifetime, that metaphor has started to take on a stunning, physical form. The abstract has become concrete. Something truly strange is happening in our cosmic neighborhood, and it began in the year 2017. That year, for the first time in recorded history, astronomers detected an object passing through our solar system that was not from here. It wasn't a comet or an asteroid born from our own sun's family. Its trajectory proved it was an interstellar visitor, a traveler from the vast darkness between the stars. They named it Oumuamua, a Hawaiian word meaning a messenger from afar arriving first. And it was a very strange messenger indeed. Oumuamua didn't look or act like anything we'd ever seen before. First, there was its shape. Based on how it reflected sunlight, scientists concluded it was highly elongated, perhaps 10 times longer than it was wide, more like a cosmic cigar or needle than a typical roundish asteroid. Then, there was its movement. As it passed by the sun, it accelerated, moving away faster than the sun's gravity alone could explain. Normally, this acceleration is seen in comets. As they near the sun, ice on their surface turns to gas, creating a tail and acting like a small rocket engine, pushing it along. But Oumuamua had no tail. There was no visible outgassing, no cloud of dust or gas. It was accelerating because of some unseen force. This anomaly led to a remarkable and controversial hypothesis from a highly respected scientist. Professor Avi Loeb, the former chair of Harvard University's astronomy department, put forth a daring idea. He suggested that the most plausible explanation for Oumuamua's bizarre characteristics was that it was not a natural object at all. He proposed it could be an artifact of an extraterrestrial civilization, perhaps a probe, a piece of a dismantled spacecraft, or even a solar sail pushed by the light of another star. Now, it's crucial to state that this idea was, and remains, highly debated within the scientific community. Many scientists offered alternative, natural explanations, though none could perfectly account for all of Oumuamua's strange behavior. But what Avi Loeb did was significant. He opened a door. A serious, mainstream scientist had looked at the data and concluded that an artificial origin was a possibility worth considering. The world was intrigued, a little baffled, and then Oumuamua was gone, continuing its silent journey back into the interstellar void, leaving us with more questions than answers. For a few years, it remained a unique, one-time curiosity. Until it wasn't. More recently, our telescopes picked up a second interstellar visitor, an object now known as Comet 3I, Atlas. And with its arrival, what was once a singular anomaly is starting to look like something else entirely. Science calls this the result of better technology. Our new telescopes are simply more powerful, allowing us to spot these faint travelers that were always there but previously invisible. It's a perfectly logical explanation. But those who study prophecy, who look for meaning in the sequence of events, see something different. They see a pattern, a repetition, a knock on the door, followed by another knock, a little louder this time. The first messenger, Oumuamua, was silent and mysterious, accelerating away with an unknown propulsion. This second visitor, Atlas, is a comet, an object we understand better, but its arrival in such short succession is statistically remarkable. To have two confirmed interstellar visitors in a single decade, after centuries of seeing none at all, is an extraordinary moment in human history. This is where the two paths we've been walking, the path of ancient prophecy and the path of modern science, begin to converge in a startling way. Nostradamus wrote of a sign in the heavens. Science has now confirmed that our heavens are being visited by objects from beyond our comprehension. He wrote of something that would blaze, capturing the world's attention. Science is now tracking an object that could become brilliantly visible. It forces us to ask a profound question. What if Oumuamua was the silent scout and Atlas is the herald, a sign that the period of observation is nearing its end? It's a breathtaking possibility. It suggests that science and prophecy are not opposing forces, but perhaps two different languages describing the same unfolding reality. One speaks in the language of data, trajectories, and spectral analysis. The other speaks in the language of symbols, archetypes, and destiny. But right now, in the skies above us, they seem to be pointing to the very same thing, that we are no longer alone, and that a moment of profound change is approaching. Humanity at the crossroads, judgment or awakening. And so we arrive at the heart of the matter, the crossroads where all these threads of history, science, and prophecy converge. It is here that we must understand the most crucial truth of all. The prophecy of Nostradamus is not a sentence handed down from the past. It is a mirror. It reflects back to us the state of the very world we have created, and it asks us a single, monumental question: what will we do now? Before us lie two paths, two possible futures that branch out from this exact moment in time. The form the strangers take, whether they become our downfall or our salvation, depends entirely on the path we, as a human family, choose to walk. First, there is the path of fear. It is a well-worn road, one humanity has traveled many times before. If we choose this path, we will see the strangers, the crises, the new technologies, the unsettling truths as threats to be conquered. We will react as we always have, with division and blame. We will see the environmental crisis and point fingers at other nations. We will see the rise of artificial intelligence and seek to control or destroy it out of fear of being replaced. We will retreat further into our tribes, building higher walls, listening only to the voices that echo our own anxieties. If we persist in this way, if we let fear guide us, then the great prophecy will fulfill itself in the darkest way imaginable. The strangers will not need to be conquerors. They will simply be witnesses to our self-destruction. Humanity will collapse under the weight of its own division, its own pride, its own refusal to awaken. But there is another path. It is a less traveled road, one that requires more from us. It is the path of wisdom. If we choose this path, we see the strangers not as threats, but as a profound and urgent wake-up call. We see the global instability and recognize it as a symptom of our shared pain, an invitation to find new ways to connect. We see the climate crisis not as a reason to blame, but as a common challenge that demands our collective genius. We see the arrival of artificial intelligence and choose to guide it with wisdom, to use it as a tool to uplift all of humanity, not just a select few. On this path, we respond to the chaos not by building walls, but by building bridges. We respond to the unknown with curiosity instead of fear, with humility instead of arrogance. If we can find the strength to choose this path, then the strangers of prophecy transform. They are no longer omens of doom, but heralds of a new beginning. They become our teachers. The crises force us to innovate. The new intelligence helps us solve age-old problems. The breakdown of old systems allows us to build something new and better in their place. The year 2025 ceases to be an end date and becomes, instead, the dawn of a new age for humanity. And that brings us to the core of it all, the most important lesson hidden within these ancient verses. The fate of 2025 is not written in the stars. It is being written right now in the hearts and minds of each and every one of us. Our collective choices, the compassion we show, the truths we are willing to face, the unity we are willing to build, are what will shape the years to come. The warning has been issued. The time is closing fast. The question is no longer whether we believe Nostradamus, but whether we believe in our own capacity to choose a better future. I want to hear your thoughts. What strangers do you see shaping our world? And which path do you believe humanity is walking towards? Please share your reflections in the comments below. Our dialogue is the first step of the awakening. Daily prayer for protection. After listening to those echoes from the past and holding them up against the chaotic reality of our present day, it's natural to feel a sense of unease settle in the heart. The strangers Nostradamus warned of, whether we see them as global crises, revolutionary technologies, or uncomfortable truths we are not yet ready to face, are undeniably here. They are in the air we breathe, the news we consume, and the quiet worries that keep us awake at night. The weight of it all can feel overwhelming. It can feel as though we are small boats tossed on a vast and stormy sea, with waves of uncertainty crashing over us from every direction. So, in the midst of this storm, where do we find an anchor? When the world outside seems to spin out of control, how can we possibly protect the peace within our own souls? How do we keep our own inner light from being extinguished by the gathering darkness? The answer, perhaps, does not lie in building stronger walls against the world, but in cultivating a stronger sanctuary within ourselves. The truest form of protection isn't a shield against external events, but a fortress of inner resilience, built day by day, thought by thought, prayer by prayer. This is the moment we can turn inward, not in retreat, but to connect with a power that is older than any prophecy, more constant than any crisis, and more profound than any fear. This is the power of faith, of intention, and of prayer. No matter how the world changes, we can still turn to a daily prayer for blessings to keep our hearts at peace. It's about finding a moment each day to center ourselves, to remember who we are beyond the chaos, and to ask for guidance, strength, and protection, not just for ourselves, but for all of humanity. What follows is not a magic spell to change the world overnight, but a tool to change our experience of the world. It is a daily practice, a way to anchor our spirit so that we can face whatever comes, not with fear, but with a quiet and unshakable faith. And so, here we are, standing at this crossroads of history, feeling the weight of the times we live in. The question of how to find our footing, how to protect our peace, is not an abstract one. It is the most practical question we can ask. The answer begins with a simple yet profound daily act of intention. It begins with prayer. I would like to share with you now the words of a daily prayer for protection. If you can, find a quiet moment. Take a gentle breath. You don't need to believe in any one specific doctrine to feel the truth in these words. You only need an open heart. Let us speak them together, in the quiet of our own minds. O eternal light, O universal love, in a world of turmoil and anxiety, please surround me in the light of your protection. Grant me the clarity to see through the chaos, to distinguish truth from deception. Grant me the courage to not act out of fear, and the compassion to not be drawn into division. Heal the wounds within my own soul, and in the soul of humanity. Help me to remember that we are all part of one great whole. Guide my actions with wisdom and my words with love, so that each day I may be a beacon of peace for myself and for those around me. Amen. And so it island. Let those words rest for a moment. This is not a magic spell or a one-time incantation to be recited and then forgotten. It is a ritual. It is a daily practice to train the mind and fortify the spirit, much like we exercise our bodies to build strength. We don't go to the gym just once and expect to be strong for the rest of our lives. We don't eat a single healthy meal and expect a lifetime of wellness. In the same way, spiritual and emotional resilience is built through consistent daily practice. Think of our minds in the year 2025. Every single day, they are bombarded. Notifications on our phones, an endless stream of often troubling news, the pressures of work, the anxieties for our families, the political arguments that seem to seep into every corner of our lives. Our attention is constantly being pulled outward, scattered into 1,000 different directions. This daily prayer is a conscious act of rebellion against that chaos. For just a few minutes each morning or each evening, we are making a choice. We are choosing to unplug from the noise of the world and reconnect with that quiet, powerful source of strength that resides within each of us. It is an act of spiritual hygiene. We are washing away the fears and anxieties that have accumulated during the day, and we are reaffirming what is most important. With each repetition, we are not building a wall of stone, but a shield of light. We are consciously fortifying our inner world, strengthening the spiritual muscle of peace, clarity, and compassion. Over time, this daily ritual changes us. We become less reactive to the chaos outside because we are more anchored to the peace inside. The winds of fear and division may still blow, but they no longer have the power to knock us off our feet. The prayer, as a whole, is a powerful anchor, but its true strength is found when we understand the profound meaning woven into each and every line. It's in that understanding that we transform the words from something we say into something we become. So now, let us journey together, deeper into each line, to truly understand the power contained within these words. Let's explore how this simple prayer can become our most steadfast guide through the uncertain times ahead. Let's begin with the very first line of our prayer, because it is the foundation for everything that follows. Please surround me in the light of your protection. When we hear the word protection, our first thought might be of a physical shield, a barrier against harm, an invisible wall that keeps the dangers of the world at bay. But the protection we are asking for here is something far deeper and far more powerful in our modern world. It is a spiritual and emotional shield against the storms that rage, not against our bodies, but against our peace of mind. Let's be honest, in the year 2025, one of the greatest storms we face is the information storm. Day in and day out, we are caught in a digital flood. Our phones, our televisions, our computers, they pour an endless torrent of information into our lives. And so much of that information is designed to provoke a reaction. Fear, anger, outrage, division. It's a constant hurricane of headlines about conflict, crisis, and catastrophe. It is exhausting. It can leave our minds feeling bruised, our spirits feeling heavy. We can start to feel hopeless believing the world is nothing but a place of darkness and despair. To pray for the light of your protection in this context is a conscious act of reclaiming our mental space. It is asking for the wisdom to build a filter. It is not about ignoring the world's problems, but about refusing to let the chaos of the world become the chaos of our own soul. This light of protection is the strength to turn off the news when we feel overwhelmed. It is the discernment to recognize information that is meant to divide us and to choose not to participate in the cycle of outrage. It is the discipline to curate our mental diet as carefully as we curate our physical one, feeding our minds with what is hopeful, constructive, and true, rather than with a constant stream of digital poison. When we ask to be surrounded by this light, we are asking to become a sanctuary for our own minds, a place where the noise of the world fades and the quiet voice of our own inner wisdom can finally be heard. The second great storm we face is the social storm. We live in a time of profound division, where conversations can feel like walking on a battleground. Friendships are strained, families are fractured, and communities are pulled apart by differing beliefs. It is easy to get swept up in the currents of us versus them, to see those who disagree with us not as neighbors with a different perspective, but as adversaries to be defeated. The temptation to respond to anger with more anger, to judgment with more judgment, is immense. Praying for protection from this storm is not about winning an argument. It's about protecting our own hearts from the hardening effects of conflict. It is a plea for the strength to remain compassionate in the face of animosity. It is the power to listen with a genuine desire to understand, even when we disagree. This protection allows us to hold our own values and truths without needing to tear down someone else's. It transforms us from another warring ship in the storm into a calm harbor, a place of stability where reason and kindness can find refuge. It is the grace to stand firm in our own integrity while refusing to be pulled into the vortex of hatred that surrounds us. And finally, there is the economic storm. In a world of rising costs, of uncertainty about jobs and the future, a persistent anxiety can take root in our lives. It's that nagging voice of "what if" that whispers to us in the quiet hours of the night. What if I can't provide for my family? What if I lose what I've worked so hard to build? This fear can be paralyzing. It can make us see scarcity everywhere and can cause us to make decisions based on anxiety rather than faith. When we pray for the light of your protection against this storm, we are asking for a shift in perspective. We are asking to be shielded from the belief that our worth is measured by our bank account or our material possessions. It is a prayer to find a sense of abundance and security that is not dependent on the fluctuating markets of the world. It is the ability to find gratitude for what we have right here and now, rather than constantly fearing what we might lose. This protection doesn't magically solve our financial problems, but it gives us a foundation of inner peace from which we can face those problems with a clear head and a steady heart. When we ask for protection, we are not asking for a miracle to stop the world from spinning. We are asking for the strength to stand firm while it spins. It is a prayer for resilience. It is a daily declaration that while we may not have control over the great storms of the world, we can, with grace and intention, exercise control over the sacred space of our own mind and our own soul. And in these turbulent times, that is the only protection that truly matters. We have prayed to be surrounded by a light of protection, a shield against the storms of the outer world. But a shield is only half the battle. A fortress can withstand a siege, but it cannot win a war. The greatest challenges we face are not the ones that batter our walls from the outside, but the ones that threaten to crumble our foundations from within. This brings us to the core of our prayer and to the heart of the human struggle itself. Grant me the clarity to see through the chaos. Grant me the courage to not act out of fear. Let's go back to that prophetic warning for a moment. Nostradamus was right. Division is the condition that invites collapse. We see it playing out every single day in our world. But where does that division begin? It begins not in parliaments or on battlefields, but in the quiet, fearful chambers of the human heart. It begins with the oldest and most powerful stranger of all, fear itself. Fear of the future, fear of the unknown, fear of those who are different from us, fear of losing what we have, fear of not being enough. This is the inner storm. And this stranger, fear, is the most dangerous of all because it lives inside of us. It whispers lies in our ears, telling us that we are alone, that we are powerless, and that our only option is to lash out or to shut down. The prophecy, then, is not just about a date on a calendar. It is a challenge to confront this inner stranger head-on, and to do that, we need two essential tools, a lamp for the mind and a fire in the heart. The prayer asks for both. First, we ask for clarity. In a world saturated with information and opinion, clarity is not about having all the answers. It is not about knowing what will happen tomorrow. Clarity is about seeing what is happening today without the distorting filter of fear. The world is a complex place, but fear simplifies it into a dangerous binary: good versus evil, right versus wrong, us versus them. Fear is a fog that descends upon our judgment, clouding our ability to see nuance, to feel empathy, to find common ground. When we watch a political talk show that makes our blood boil, that visceral reaction is the fog of fear and anger. When we get into a heated argument with a loved one over a sensitive issue, the inability to hear what they are truly saying is the fog. When we read a headline that makes us feel hopeless about the future, that feeling of despair is the fog. To pray for clarity is to ask for a lamp to cut through that fog. It is the ability to take a deep breath and create a small space between what happens to us and how we respond. It is the power to see an angry person and wonder about their pain instead of just reacting to their anger. It is the wisdom to read a frightening headline and ask, what is the bigger picture here? Instead of immediately accepting the worst-case scenario. Clarity is the quiet space where we choose to listen instead of just reloading our own arguments. It is the inner stillness that allows us to see the humanity in others, even when we profoundly disagree with them. Without this clarity, we are simply reacting, puppets pulled by the strings of our oldest fears. With it, we become conscious authors of our own response. But clarity alone is not enough. To see the right path is one thing, to have the strength to walk it is another entirely. That is why the second part of this request is so vital. We ask for courage. And we must be very clear about what real courage. Island courage is not the absence of fear. A life without fear is not a human life. We all feel fear. It's a natural, primal part of our being. Courage, true courage, is feeling that fear fully and choosing to act from a place of love and integrity anyway. It is the courage to be kind in an age of outrage. It is the courage to seek understanding when everyone around you is seeking conflict. It is the courage to turn off the television and have a real conversation with your neighbor. It's the courage to admit, I don't know, in a world that pressures us to have a firm opinion on everything. It is the courage to hope when despair seems like the only logical option. It takes courage to believe that humanity can heal itself, that we can find our way back to each other. It takes courage to plant a tree, to teach a child, to perform a small act of kindness, because these are all acts of faith in the future. And it takes courage to look at the strangers of our time, the immense challenges we face, and see them not as final judgments, but as catalysts for our own evolution. Clarity and courage are the two pillars of our inner fortress. Clarity is the lamp that illuminates the path, showing us the way through the fog of fear. Courage is the heart that gives us the strength to take the first step, and the next, and the next. Clarity without courage is passive observation. We may see the truth but feel powerless to act on it. Courage without clarity is blind action, often leading to more chaos. But together, they are transformative. They are the essential virtues for our time. When we pray for clarity and courage, we are asking to become the kind of person who is not merely a survivor of these chaotic times, but an active participant in the healing of our world. We are asking to face the stranger within, so that we may greet the strangers without, whatever form they may take, with a steady hand and a compassionate heart. We've explored the need for an inner shield of protection and the inner tools of clarity and courage to navigate these times. But this brings us to the final and most essential part of our prayer. It is the part that moves beyond our own personal peace and addresses the heart of the prophecy itself. It is the plea, "Heal the wounds within my own soul and in the soul of humanity. Help me to remember that we are all part of one great whole." A prophecy of this magnitude is not a warning for a single individual, it is a warning for a civilization. Therefore, the response, the solution, must also be collective. My personal peace, your personal courage, is vital. It is the necessary starting point, but it is not the final destination. The true test Nostradamus laid before us is not whether I can save myself, but whether we can save each other. To do that, we must first be willing to acknowledge our wounds. The prayer asks for healing, first for our own soul, and then for the soul of humanity. The two are inseparable. The divisions we see in the world are often a reflection of the unhealed wounds we carry within ourselves, our own hurts, our own resentments, our own unacknowledged pain. We project that pain outward, and it becomes the anger, the blame, and the conflict that fractures our world. So the healing must begin with us. It's the act of forgiving ourselves for past mistakes. It's the act of letting go of old grievances that have held us captive for years. It is the honest work of looking at our own prejudices, our own hidden biases, and bringing them into the light of awareness so they can be healed. But then, we must extend that same compassion outward to the collective. The soul of humanity is wounded. It is scarred by centuries of conflict, by historical injustices, by the deep divides between cultures, nations, and peoples. Healing these wounds means developing a radical empathy. It means understanding that the pain of someone on the other side of the world is, in some fundamental way, our pain too. It means recognizing that the struggles of a community different from our own are part of our shared human story. When we can look at the world's suffering not as a distant problem, but as a wound on a shared body, then we have begun the process of true healing. And this leads us to the ultimate key, the single most powerful idea in this entire prayer. Help me to remember that we are all part of one great whole. This is it. This is the choice. This is the answer to the riddle. The core weakness that Nostradamus saw in humanity was not our technology or our politics, it was our forgetfulness. We have forgotten this fundamental truth. We have allowed ourselves to be convinced that we are separate, that we are islands, that the success of one person can be built on the failure of another, that the security of one nation can be achieved through the domination of another. This illusion of separation is the root of all the strangers that plague us. It is the soil from which greed, conflict, and fear grow. To remember that we are one is to choose the path of awakening. When we truly feel that connection, the entire dynamic of the world shifts. Greed becomes illogical, because harming another is harming a part of yourself. War becomes an act of self-mutilation. Ignoring the suffering of others becomes an act of ignoring a wound on your own body. This is the great challenge of 2025. It is not to fight off an invasion from the sky, but to win the war against the illusion of separation in our own hearts. Every time we choose understanding over judgment, we strengthen that bond of unity. Every time we choose to share instead of hoard, we affirm our connection. Every time we listen to a story different from our own and see a reflection of ourselves, we are remembering. This is the path to a future where the strangers arrive not as conquerors, but as guides. Because a humanity that recognizes its own unity is a humanity that is finally ready to take its place in a larger cosmic family. A civilization that has healed its own divisions is one that has nothing to fear from visitors, because it has learned to greet the other not with suspicion, but with an open hand and an open heart. The prophecy is a test of our memory. Will we remember our connection to each other and to this planet we all share? Or will we remain lost in the fog of our separation until the very end? The choice, as always, is ours. And so, our journey through these ancient words and modern anxieties comes to this final, simple truth. The prophecy of Nostradamus, after all, is not really about comets or spaceships. It's about us. It is a timeless reminder that the world we experience on the outside is always a direct reflection of the world we cultivate on the inside. To change the future, to answer the call of this prophetic moment, we must begin by changing ourselves. The greatest stranger we must confront is not a visitor from the sky, but the fear, division, and despair that we have allowed to take root in our own hearts. This brings us to a fundamental understanding of human nature. Our nature is not fixed. It is not inherently good or inherently bad. It is, and has always been, a vessel of immense potential. We hold within us the capacity for terrifying destruction, and we see evidence of that every day. But we also hold an equally powerful capacity for extraordinary love, for breathtaking creativity, and for profound cooperation. The year 2025, and every single day that follows, is not a predestined date with doom. It is a test. It is a collective challenge, asking us which of these potentials we will choose to nourish and bring into the world. The choice is not made in a single dramatic moment, but in the countless small decisions we make every day. The choice is made when we decide to listen rather than shout, when we choose compassion over judgment, when we choose to build a bridge rather than a wall. It is in these quiet acts of courage and clarity that we collectively rewrite the prophecy. We decide whether the great star in the sky is an omen of an ending or the dawn of a new and brighter age. This journey of discovery is far from over. There is more to explore, more to understand. But before we continue, I need to know who has walked this path with me to the very end. If you are still listening, please do me a small favor and comment with the number 1 below. It will let me know that there are fellow travelers here, walking this journey alongside me. Your presence is the greatest encouragement for me to continue with the final part of our story, where we will explore what humanity might truly become after we have faced these strangers. Thank you for your time and for your thoughtful consideration. Until we speak again, hold fast to the light of peace in your heart. Thank you for listening.